This conference will now be recorded.
Hi everyone, good morning. So today we will see a concept in SOVA called mediator. Okay, so this is one other than people. Till today, whenever we are writing some business logic, we are writing the business logic in people process, correct? So, but by using mediator, or we can use the mediator for a different purpose. Of course, we can build the SOAP web services, REST web services, adapter based services by using mediator component. But mediator is meant for content based routing. Content based routing. I will explain what is this content based routing. Okay, so generally, I will give you one small requirement. Let's say I have bunch of services. Let me draw one small diagram. If you see, I have one web service. I have one web service which will accept two numbers, okay, as input, and it will perform addition of two numbers as a response. Okay, that means this web service will do addition of two numbers. Okay, one small web service. That's it. Nothing, not a complex one. I'm not worried about is it addition or subtraction. I just want to show you what is content based routing. Okay, so let me draw the diagram. Okay, this is how I have a web service. Not just one. Let's assume I have a couple of services. Two. Each service will execute some business logic. Okay, guys, each service can be any technology program. There is no dependency on the technology as well. Let's say this is OSP program, this is Java program, this is .NET program. We really don't care about the technology. We are looking for just a web service. That's it. So web service or REST web service, anything is fine for us. In this example, I took three SOAP web services. Okay, so I have a client. This guy want to perform addition of two numbers, subtraction of two numbers, or multiplication of two numbers. Some mathematical calculations he want to perform. Okay, so to perform mathematical calculations, we have three different web services. These three different web services will have three different endpoints. Correct? Suppose this client want to perform. Guys, when I said client, it's not just human. It can be a web application. It can be another web service. Okay. It can be a REST service. It can be a Java program. It can be a .NET program. It can be JavaScript. So client can be any technology program or a human. Okay. So this client want to communicate or want to perform addition of two numbers. For that, client need to establish a communication with the addition web service. Addition web service will have a different endpoint. And if client want to perform subtraction, he need to go to the subtraction web service and perform the subtraction logic, correct? So that means there are three different, in our example, we have three SOAP services. Three SOAP services will have three different endpoints. So client need to consume all three different endpoints. Maybe it's not just three, maybe it is 30 services, 30 different mathematical operations, or 100 different mathematical operations we want to perform, then 100 different programs we need to configure. Correct? So it will be little difficult for the client to configure every endpoint. Okay, so instead of directly allowing client to communicate with the actual service, what we want to do, we want to make a mediator component with less efforts. This must not. I'm introducing a new program here. Can be a SOAP web service or can be a REST web service. I want to introduce a program, new program, and I want to generate common endpoint and internally I want to establish the communication between this common web service and the target web services. Is it clear? I want to do something like this. So I don't want to expose my target services. I don't want to expose my target web services with my client. Okay, instead of exposing my target web service with client, I will expose a mediator web service, which will not affect the performance of the flow. Mediator is a lightweight component, comparatively mediator is a lightweight component. Okay, mediator is a lightweight component, comparatively people. Okay, it perform content based routing. Something like this. Suppose your web service is asking, provide me the input parameters. Provide me the input parameters. You will get the total and what kind of operation it performed. Something like this. This kind of output it will generate. Okay, so this one I will say 300 input, 100 input. It will generate the subtraction logic. 200 is the output, and it will say subtraction. And here, if you see, this is multiplication, right? Let's assume 10 and 20 is the input, and here it will generate 200 and multiplication as output. Something like this. These target web services are expecting this kind of input, of course, in XML format or JSON format, not really the plain text. Instead of writing the XML or JSON, I am just writing uh, some input data, okay, as an example. But web service won't accept plain data. It always looks for either XML or JSON. Okay, so now how I want to design this mediator web service. So I want to yellow input. Okay, I want to yellow input data along with the operator or I will say add along with a keyword, add sub mul. So one keyword I want to allow as input. Okay, let me drag this. One keyword I want to allow as input. So then what I want to do in this mediator, I want to write a business logic. If the operation is add, or if uh, the mathematical expression what we want to perform is add, then my mediator will execute the logic and call the addition service. How to execute the logic? We have to see that. What kind of logic we need to write in the mediator, we have to learn today. Okay, so but what I want to do, this is my requirement. If the operation is add, this mediator should communicate with addition web service. If the operation is subtraction, then my mediator should communicate with subtraction web service. If the operation is multiplication, my mediator should communicate with multiplication web service. That routing logic, content based routing. So the name itself is saying according to the content based routing.
Sir, your screen was stuck in.
మాస్టర్ కరెంటు పోయింటుంది.
Okay, no, okay.
This
Let
conference will
me
now be
start the
recorded.
recording. Okay, so what I'm saying is, if you see the screen, by using this mediator, it can perform content-based routing.
మాస్టర్
That
స్క్రీన్
means
షేర్ అవ్వట్లేదు.
according to your
హలో,
okay, screen not shared.
నాట్ షేర్.
Sir, screen visible
Is I'm
అవుతుంది.
audible? Okay,
Audible,
I will
okay.
share my screen. Sorry. Fine. Okay, fine. So if you see my screen, uh, by using Mediator, what we can perform content-based routing, correct? So that means according to your input, by looking into the input data, your Mediator web service will execute a business logic. I mean, it will route the request to respective target service. Suppose if the input contains add keyword, add as the operation name, so the control goes to edition web service. Okay, guys, go on mute. Venkat, go on mute. Okay, right. So according to the content, your mediator will route your request to the target system, target web service or target REST service. Okay, that's why it is called as content-based routing. So can't we do this logic in a BPEL process? Why we have to go for mediator? So comparatively, BPEL and Mediator gives you high performance, but Mediator is not meant for complex business logic. Okay, so BPEL is meant for complex business logic, but Mediator is not meant for complex business logic. At the same time, BPEL is stateful. BPEL is stateful, but Mediator is not stateful. It is stateless component. Okay, so we'll see how to configure it and what we will do in the mediator. Okay, so in mediator we configure something called routing rules. Okay, routing rules, each routing rule contain multiple configurations. Okay, in one mediator you can configure multiple routing rules, and each routing rule there are few main configurations which we need to perform. Okay, number one, condition configuration. We need to configure the condition. Number two, request transformation. Request transformation. And number three, response transformation. Okay, and of course we need to configure three, and this is four. Number two, we need to configure uh, reference component. Okay, so in any routing rule, in a mediator, we can configure multiple routing rules. In every routing rule or in each routing rule, we have to do few configurations: condition configuration, reference component configuration, request transformation, and response transformation. These four things are minimum things you need to configure to execute one routing rule in mediator. This way, you can configure multiple routing rules. I will show you how to do that. Okay, so now let's start one example. The same example I want to do, whatever I shown you in this image, in this diagram, similar example I want to do. For that, we need target services, addition web service and subtraction web service. What I will do, I already have addition and subtraction OSB technology web services. Okay, I can use them. It's, I mean, I told you, right? Technology wise, we have no dependency on technology. Your target web service can be any technology web service. It can be OSB, it can be SOA, it can be Java or .NET. Any technology web service, only we need is uh, the endpoint or the WSDL of the web service. That's it. So what I want to do, I want one addition web service and subtraction web service, and I will use them from my OSB projects. Okay, I have one addition proxy service, subtraction proxy service. Okay, we need to use proxy services. Let me go to addition proxy, and also I will open subtraction proxy. We need to get the endpoints first. Let them load. project, create a new SOA project. Okay, and and of course, before creating the SOA project, let me give you the structure. So we want to design the SOA web service, right? SOA Mediator web service. Okay, for this, my request format, I'm expecting the request format something like content-based routing request, which contains field 1, field 2, here I'm expecting result and operation. This is the input and output format in my Mediator web service. So I want to design a new Mediator web service. Let's see. Let me design a new project, SOA web service or SOA project. Okay, I will name it as content based routing project. Okay, content based routing project. It's a SOA project. Just say finish. Right. So now I want to create a mediator web service. If you see this mediator component, just drag drop the mediator component here. Mediator component. Done. Let it load the wizard. So you can give any name for this mediator. I will say Calci mediator. Okay. And the interface, it's a synchronous web service because we are expecting request and response. So it is a synchronous web service. This guy is going to create a default XSD, but default XSD is not enough for us. We will modify it. Say OK. What will happen? One service component and a mediator component will be created. Okay, one service component and mediator component. So before doing any business logic, just observe few things. See, there is an XSD document created, a WSDL document created, mplan document. Mplan document is nothing but your mediator file. If you open this mediator file, see this. This is the mediator file. We configure routing rules in mediator. Okay, so let's see that. I mean, for people it is a .bpl file. For mediator it is mplan file. Okay, uh, you need to remember. You must remember this .mplan. Anyway, go to the XSD document. See, this XSD document is not suitable for our requirements. See, simply they are using a single element, one element as request XSD and response XSD. That's it. This is the default XSD this mediator is using. So I don't want to go with this XSD. I want to build my own XSD. Okay, so what I want to do, we want, let me build the XSD. Give some time, it JDEV got stuck. So what I want to do, I want to build two XSDs. This is the request XSD format and this is the response XSD format. With these two formats, I want to build an XSD. Okay, let's see if my JDEV is ready. It's not loading. For seconds. So once we modify the XSD, later we need to go to WSDL and we need to modify the request message and the response message. You know the relation, right, between XSD and WSDL. If you modify the XSD complex element name, the root element name, that affects your WSDL. So once we are ready with the XSD document in this JDEV, in this XSD document, then the next step is we need to go to WSDL. It is taking time. We need to wait for some time. JDEV has to release. Okay, right. So field 1, this is field 2. Field 2, two simple elements, but this is not enough for us, right? We need a complex element. Element name is equal to CBR request. This is complex type sequence. You know the syntax, correct? We learn the syntax. Okay. And these are integer elements. Integer elements. And of course, we want the third element, which is operation. Operation. So this operation we are expecting as a string, right? Not integer. String. Okay, this is my request XSD. Similarly, I want to build a response XSD. This is CBR response. Okay, in CBR response, we are expecting two elements. Two elements. One is result, and another is operation name. Just format the XSD. Reformat. So once you reformat, you can see two XSDs here with proper spacing. It's not a mandatory step to reformat. It's just for our convenience. So we have two XSDs now, CBR request, CBR response. If you go to Wisdom, let's go to Wisdom. In the source view, you can see we have a request message and response message. This request message is pointing to old XSD. Reply message also pointing to old XSD. We must fix it first. Our new XSD, CBR request. CBR request, go to request message, and CBR response, go to response message. You can see once I fix it, the error gone. Okay, save everything. So our XSD document is ready and WSDL document also ready. Okay, now we can go to our composite file. Just close the XSD and WSDL, go to composite file. So in this composite file, under the mediator, I need to design the business logic to call a reference component, which is nothing but addition web service and subtraction web service. Let me start with the first one. I want to configure one reference component. It's a SOAP service. SOAP service, of course, irrespective of technology, it's a SOAP web service. It can be OSB program, Java program, or a .NET program. Any technology web service you can integrate in your SOA program. Uh, so if your target service is a SOAP web service, we really don't care about the technology. We just need to configure a SOAP component. That's it. Okay. I just created a SOAP component and I want to call it as edition reference. Edition reference. So you can provide the WSDL here. You can provide the WSDL here. So our edition web service WSDL. This is our edition web service WSDL. Just provide it here. And if you click tab button in your keyboard, port types will be loaded. Done. And guys, I want to download the WSDL. I want to download the WSDL copy because it is not local WSDL. It is a remote WSDL. It's running in the OSB server, completely out of SOA server, and it is out of SOA server. So we need to have a copy, local copy. Okay. So I want to download the WSDL. I want to download the WSDL along with dependent artifacts. So this WSDL, this OSB service WSDL, it has inline XSDs. That means WSDL contains XSD as well. Okay, so suppose if your XSD is outside WSDL, then this option, what it will do, it will download WSDL along with XSD documents. See, copy WSDL and it's a dependent artifacts into the project. Okay, so as of now, it will download only WSDL because it contains XSDs as inline XSDs. Suppose XSDs are imported XSDs, then one WSDL document will be downloaded, request XSD will be downloaded, response XSD will be downloaded. Okay, anyway, say okay. Done. So what it is asking, copy options, maintain original directory structure. Yes, I am fine with that. Say okay. That means under WSDL folder, under WSDL's folder, you can observe one WSDL downloaded. Your edition reference WSDL downloaded. Is it clear, guys? Edition web service WSDL downloaded. Okay. Now just observe. If you go to mediator component, this is the routing rule. There are no routing rules defined as of now. There are no routing rules defined as of now. So what we can do, just go back to your composite file, create the wiring between mediator and the reference component. Now, if you open your mediator file, you can see one routing rule. See, this is one routing rule. We just created. One routing rule. In this routing rule, there are several properties we need to configure. I told you condition, reference component configuration, request transformation, and response transformation. Mainly four things we need to do. All four I will show you. See this is the condition part, filter expression. If you see this icon, if you click on this icon, by using this you can configure the condition. It is the same condition like any if else activity you configure in people, right? Similar way you can configure the expression or the condition in this section. This is the place where you can configure your condition. Okay, and then above this line you can see there is a partition line. Above this line whatever is there is related to request, and below this line is the response flow. Above is the request flow, below is the response flow. Okay, in the request flow, if you want to perform some data mapping, if it is complex data mapping, we can go for transform using property. If it is a complex mapping, you can go for transform using property. It is something like uh, our transformation activity XSLT. This guy will give you the ability to create an XSLT. Okay, a complex transformation you can write in this. Suppose if you have simple mappings, you can go for assign values. This is like your assign activity. Okay, this transform using property is your XSLT file. Assign values are something like your assign activity. Okay, in the same way response also contains transform and also assign values. It's your choice whether you want to go for XSLT or you want to go for assign values. Okay, we in this example I will show you two routing rules. In one example I will use transform, one example I will use assign. Okay, just for your convenience and you to understand it. Okay, now other than this we have to configure the reference component. See, already we created the binding, right? Already we created a binding with the reference component. That means your reference component was already configured. See this is the reference component configuration. Once you create the binding or the wire, the reference component will be connected with your routing rule. Okay, done. So let me configure this. So I want to configure the condition. What is my condition? In the input, see this is the input. We don't have separate variables like your BPL process. BPL process, you can configure the variable, completely customizable variable, correct? But here we don't have an option. According to the XSD, your input variable, output variable will be decided. See, this is the input variable, and you can see the input XSD structure. So operation is equal to add. If the operation is add, then only I want to execute this routing rule. If the operation name is add, then only I want to execute this routing rule. So what you want to do, I want to send the data to edition web service and get the response from edition web service. I don't want to perform edition logic in my mediator. I'm routing my request to the target service. Okay, so in case if the operation name is add, then only execute this routing rule. If the operation name is not add, don't execute the routing rule. Okay, so we are ready with the condition, we are ready with the reference component. Now we need to concentrate on the request transformation and response transformation. Okay, in the request transformation, in this example I am using the transformation file. Let me create the request transformation. Just click on this icon. If you click on this icon, a pop-up will come. Create a new transformation file. Just click on the plus icon, it will create a new transformation file. You can give a meaningful name, guys. So what we are doing, CBR request to edition request. It is just the naming convention uh, for our convenience. That's it. Name is always user defined. You can give any name. But what my intention here is, my mediator input to edition web service input, I want to do the mappings. Okay, that is the naming convention I followed. Say okay. Then it will create a transformation file. Observe this is our mediator input format. This is our mediator input format, and the target side, this is our OSB edition web service input format. Okay, simply perform the required mappings. Field 1, I want to map it as OSB in 1. Field 2, I want to map it as OSB in 2. We are just passing the data. We are not doing anything else. Okay, because our intention is not to do the logic in our mediator. Our intention is route the request to proper target service. That's it. We don't want to perform any business logic in the mediator. Actual business logic exists in the target service. Okay, save it. So request transformation is ready. Request transformation is ready. Similarly, if you go to the replay flow, synchronous replay flow, here also you can configure the response transformation. This time, the response transformation is between edition. Okay, let me create a new file. So what is the naming convention I have to do? Edition response. We will get the edition response to CBR response. CBR response. Okay. Here you no need to worry about the structure. I mean the naming convention is just user defined keyword, but it is always good if you can provide the meaningful naming convention. Okay. Edition response to CBR response. Observe this. Observe the structure here. This is the source. It is an OSB output. OSB output structure, and this is your mediator output structure. Just copy do the mappings. I mean, result to result, I will map the data. Okay, result to result, I will map the data, and operation name, I'm just mapping it as operation. Done. So we have one routing rule. Within the routing rule, if the condition is true, we want to call the edition reference. Before calling edition reference, we are preparing the request transformation. We want to execute the request transformation, which prepares the input for edition web service. Edition web service will execute. Once edition web service generates the response, your mediator response flow will get executed. In the mediator response flow, we are performing a transformation between edition response to CBR response. So this is the response transformation. Done. So this is a configuration for one routing rule. One routing rule. So you can deploy and test this service. Let's deploy the service. Let me deploy the service. Normal deployment process, nothing special. It is compiling the code. Once the compile completed, it will deploy the code. We'll see. So infra. It is taking time, right? Okay, here you can see as per logs, deployment finished. Okay, let's go to your enterprise manager, deployed composites, content-based routing project. Okay, here you can get the endpoint. This is the endpoint of your SOA mediator web service. Okay. Right, so host name, I will use it as localhost. So guys, if you observe here, uh, this is the endpoint system generated. We have no control on it. SOA web service endpoints, we have no control on it. It's system generated format. Okay. So anyway, by using this endpoint, I want to test my program. Either you can test it from SOAP UI. I just started SOAP UI. It will take time to start. Meantime, what I will do, I will test my program from this from the test console. Okay, go to test. So it will open a test console for us. Let's see. Okay, in the test console, It is asking for the request. So it is asking for request, let's say 10, 20, and I want to perform add operation. Just submit the request. If you submit the request, you can see an instance here. Let me go to instances tab. Anyway, submit the request. I will submit the request. Done. Once you submit the request, what we want to see, control goes to Mediator. From Mediator, if condition is true, then only it will call the edition web service. If condition is not true, it cannot call the edition web service. We'll see that. It is taking time to execute. Let's see it. Okay, done. It's executed. We got the response. See the response. There is no response. Okay, what happened? Let's see the flow trace. Go to the instance. You can click on this button to see the instance. See, I don't see the response here. Result is integer. Operation is string, something like this. Let me check the instance. For instance, you can go to flow instances tab. This is one option. Another thing is you can launch the flow trace. Okay, any one option is fine. Let me go to launch the flow trace. What happened, we'll see. See, our control went to our mediator. Mediator is calling the edition service as well. This edition service, it is saying it is a service bus. That means OSB program. Okay, fine. Looks like some issue at service bus. We'll check that. Before we check that, what it is doing. Oh, okay, so the dehydration level looks like production. Audit level. Audit level property is production. It is not showing any payloads. Audit level property is at production level. It is not showing any payloads. Let me change the audit level property. Let me change the audit level property. What we need to do, go to SOA infra, SOA administration, common properties. So audit level properties at production level, I want to change it to development. Just apply. You know this property and what is the meaning of this property, right? Just say, okay, now go back to your program and test this program once again. But still it will fail, but we can see the payloads. We need to identify why it is failing. We'll check that. Okay, so I submitted the request. Let's wait for the response. Looks like the problem is at OSB program. We'll see. We'll see that. We'll fix it. Okay, so the result it is saying integer, the operation it is saying string. There is no data here. Okay, so go to the flow trace. You can see the mediator. Open the mediator. Now you can see all the payloads at different level. Okay, so here you can see invoke two-way operation. Invoke two operation, which is arithmetic operation on the target service. Add reference. See the input. Open this. See the input. What is the input received? What is the input we are sending to the target service? See, we are sending to the target service. This is the data we are sending to the target service, which looks good, which looks good. Now, see, this is the response received from target service. Open this payload. See what is the response we received. See what is the response we received. We received a different, I mean, not as per XSD. As per XSD, edition web service, right? Edition web service. If you see the response XSD, this is the response XSD. Response schema, operation name and result. But what we received, request schema, OSB in one, response schema. I mean, I think the OSB side, the configuration is not correct, which we need to fix. Yeah, I will do that. Let me go to OSB console, edition pipeline. Let me fix it. Maybe while we are doing some combination of practice, we did not fix it. Let me go to create. Okay, I will fix this. I will fix this pipeline. I need to fix the replace action in the pipeline. I will do that. Stage 1, update the stays. Okay, here what I will do, replace entire node I will use, and this XPath I will use like this. Request schema and replace entire node, save it, done. And now save everything, save button, and then activate the session. Okay, I fixed my OSB program. Now again go back to your SOA program and test your program. Okay, let me test the program again. Go to request tab, let the session gets activated. Okay, session active. Now go back to your SOA program, go to request tab. You can submit the request and see. Otherwise, you can test your web service from SOAP UI as well. Even that you can do. Go to your SOAP project, and this is the endpoint. Okay, so I'm just giving some name in my SOAP UI, and this is the endpoint. Say OK. Now what happened? A SOAP project will be created. Save everything. I want to save this SOAP project on my desktop. I'm maintaining all my SOAP projects in a folder. Done. So now go to your request. Prepare some data. I want to say 100, 200, and this is addition. Okay. Submit the request. Once you submit the request, we will get the response. Okay, we received the response. See the output. See the output. The result is 300 and operation name is addition. Of course, you can see the what we can say, the flow trace in your enterprise manager. Go to your enterprise manager, check for the latest instance. Oops, what happened? Here I will go to this. You can check for latest instance, whichever comes first. Flow instances, go to recent instance. Okay, 3 times we tested this program. Go to the last one, open the latest instance. You can see the flow now. So this mediator is calling OSB service. In the mediator, you can see invoke two-way operation. Okay, the request is good, right? Even in the previous attempt, request looks good. See the request XSD. This is your OSB input. See your mediator received this XML. Your mediator received this XML. Okay, mediator received this XML. This XML we transformed into OSB input format with the transformation file. So after transformation, this is how the input OSB input looks like. This is the OSB input looks like. And then OSB service executed and send a response back to our mediator. So this is the response we received. This is the response we received, response schema. But see your SOAP UI output. See the output format is different, right? CBR response, CBR response. That means we transformed OSB output into SOA output format. We are using another transformation, right? We have response transformation. This is the replay transformation or response transformation, which is transforming addition response to CBR response. Okay, for that reason, your actual output is SOA output. This is SOA output. Okay, but in the mediator, it displays received response from add reference. This is OSB output, and then we perform the transformation. This is the transformation. And then finally, this is the SOA output. If you open this payload, this is the SOA output. CBR response. This is what you can see in your SOAP UI as well. CBR response. Okay. So you are clear, right, guys? if you provide proper data, addition as the operation, suppose if I provide subtraction as the operation, what will happen? There is no routing rule for subtraction as of now. Just submit the request. There is no response if you see. Okay, there is nothing configured for subtraction. Check the instance. If you go to your SOA program, sorry, instances, get the latest instance and see what it contains. Sometimes it takes long, it consumes the time. I don't know. Sometimes it responds very quickly, and sometimes it takes a lot of time. Yeah, we got this is the latest instance. Open it. Okay, see this calculate mediator service, which is not calling any target service because operation name we supplied as subtraction, and there is no routing rule configured for subtraction. See what it is saying. Evaluation of XPath condition is equal to add resulted false. Resulted false. That means the existing routing is not going to execute. Existing routing rule is not going to execute because the condition does not match. Okay, so let's extend our program for subtraction logic. What I will do, go back to the composite file. So here I want to design the subtraction logic. Okay, so now let's create a new SOAP component, and I will name it as subtraction service something. Okay, subtraction reference, and I will provide the subtraction concrete WSDL. This is the subtraction concrete WSDL. Then load the port types and copy the WSDL. Guys, download the WSDL only in case. I mean, it is best practice only. I don't want to restrict your way of doing the coding. But what what I'm trying to say is, it is the best practice to download the WSDL if the target service is not SOA service. Okay, if the target service is not SOA service, you can download the WSDL and keep a local copy, right? Say okay. Then I want to maintain the same folder structure. So we got one subtraction reference, subtraction WSDL. Where is it? This one. Okay, you can see subtraction WSDL. Okay, create the wire between mediator and subtraction reference component. You can see a new routing rule now. Once it is done, if you go to mediator, you can see second routing rule. Second routing rule. Okay, this is for subtraction reference. This is for subtraction reference. Same kind of configuration we need to do. Let's configure the condition first. What is the condition? In the input, operation is equal to subtraction. Guys, did you observe? This is XPath. This is XPath. Even though you don't know how to write XPath, SOA will help you to generate the expressions. Okay, but if you know XPath, you can understand every line of the code. We already discussed XPath separately, right? Okay, so the same thing here. So CBR request is a complex element. CBR request is the complex element which contains operation name. So this is the XPath, and the condition is subtraction. If it is subtraction, if the operation contains subtraction, this condition will be true. If the operation contains addition, the first condition will be true. Okay, right. So in the second routing rule, what I want to do in the previous routing rule, I configured transformation files. So in this example, I want to configure assign values. So for that existing mapping, simple mapping, simply copy the data from source to target, correct? So it's not really required to configure the XSLT when you have conditions and for loops. Okay, then go for transformation. If it is a simple straightforward mapping, no need to go for transformation. You can use assign values. If you click on the assign values icon, it will show you your mediator request and OSB, as I mean addition subtraction web service request, target service request. Okay, so you don't need to choose the variables. It already have the configuration. It will, according to your routing rule, it choose the variables. It is the mediator input This is the OSB input. Okay. Just perform the data mappings. Field 1 as OSB in 1, field 2 as OSB in 2. Okay, done. Simple mappings. It's your assign activity, nothing else. Okay, say okay, done. So the request transformation is ready by using assign values. Similarly, I want to do response transformation by using assign values. So this time here input is your subtraction service output structure. Subtraction service output structure, and output is mediator service output structure. Okay, just do the mapping. Result, and this is operation name. Done. Okay, we are ready with the second routing rule. You can deploy the program, and of course you can continue your testing. What happened? Deployment failed. Let me try to deploy the code once again. My deployment failed. Okay, so let's wait for the deployment. Once the deployment completed, you can test your addition web service, addition flow and subtraction flow both. Go to SOAP UI. Go to SOAP UI. 100 and 200, and if you use the subtraction keyword, second routing rule will execute. Just submit the request. See the response. Oh, what it is saying? Server not available. Why? Let's see. Is there any instance? Any network issue? About Wi-Fi connected. Let's see. Let's wait for the instance. Okay, instance itself failed. Open it. We'll see what is the error. I think even again a problem in the subtraction service. Okay, fine. So what it is saying, invalid source. Okay, yeah, this is the problem. Even subtraction service also maybe we need to fix like addition. So this is invoked two-way operation, and we received the response from OSB service. Subtraction reference. See the response. What is the response received? Request schema under that response schema. Response schema is under request schema. Response schema is under request schema. This is not the expected format, right? Okay, let's fix the OSB program. OSB program is not properly configured. Go to subtraction proxy. Sorry, not proxy. We need to go for pipeline. Subtraction pipeline. I will fix the code in the subtraction pipeline. Maybe the replace action was not configured properly. I will change the properties in replace action. Edit the stage, replace action, replace node content, entire node only. Content, and what is this export? Request schema, entire node I want to replace. Okay. This is the program issue. Target program side issue, not our SOA program issue. I'm done with the program. I fixed the OSP program. Now we can test the SOA program once it is activated. Then let's go back to your SOA program. Test the program. Subtraction flow. We got the result. See, we got the result. Proper output. Output is -100, and it is subtraction. Of course, you can see the instance as well. Check the latest instance. So if you give operation name as add, it goes to addition web service. If the operation name is sub, it goes to subtraction web service. See, finally, what we are doing here, we are providing only one endpoint to the client, but internally we may have 100 different end systems. We may have 100 different end systems, but we are not ready to disclose all our internal applications to the client. Okay, we are disclosing only one entry point. Within the entry point, we design the business logic in such a way according to the content. Internally, the request goes to the respective target service. So who is doing edition here? The edition web service is performing edition, not the mediator. Subtraction service is performing the subtraction, not the mediator. But client point of view, for anything, this mediator web service is the contact point for client. Okay, so but if you observe, can't we do this logic in a people process? The simple logic, right? What we are doing in this mediator, we are checking the condition. If condition is true, we are calling a target service that we can do by using invoke activity in people, correct? Condition checking we can do if else activity. Calling a target service we can do by using invoke activity. Before invocation, we perform request transformation by using XSLT transform activity or by using assign activity. Request transformation, which we do before invocation. Response transformation, which we do after invocation. All this stuff we can do in people process as well, correct? Then why we have to go for mediator? So people process is meant for orchestration flow. I mean, a complex business logic, if you want to design, you can go for you can go for people. But mediator is not meant for complex business logic, and it gives you high performance comparatively people. It is faster. If you want to implement simple routing, instead of going with people, you can go with mediator. Okay, you can execute. I mean, you can give high performance with mediator because it's a lightweight service. It's not like your people is a heavyweight service. Okay, mediator is stateless and lightweight service. So just for routing logic, you can go for mediator instead of people. Is it clear, guys? Okay, so now what we left with the latest instance. Of course, just for our understanding, you can go through the instance and see what is the request received, what is the data transformed, what is the data we are sending to reference component, what is the response we received from reference component. All these things you can see in the instance. Okay. So that's about the mediator, and you can do the practice, guys. So if you have any questions, let me know. I will stop the recording.